Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news as we discuss some big developments this Monday morning with Ralf Rangnick set to stay at Manchester United next season and a potential reunited relationship with Paul Mitchell, which I'm sure will please a lot of people. We've also got big transfer news around Christian Eriksen, Frankie de Jong, Declan Rice, Rudiger and a few others as well. So lots to get into this morning. And we've also got Fabrizio Romano live on the show at 2:30 this afternoon. So we'll be able to get lots of transfer updates there as well. So how are we all doing this Monday morning? A big week for Manchester United. Not only because we've got a game against Chelsea and Brentford in the next 7 days that are both at home that we both need to win. But also this transfer delegation and the future of United. Now that we've got Erik Ten Hag, lots of things are going on. Ten Hag's coaching team, Rangnick staying on as a consultant, Paul Mitchell trying to persuade him to come in. Didn't get a chance to talk about it on the 8 o'clock show last night, but Paul Mitchell was trending last night on Twitter. Who is Paul Mitchell? Well, he's considered to be one of the most exciting and better sporting directors, recruiters, head of recruitments in European football. Spent time at Southampton with Pochettino, had a great record there, went to Spurs. Then he went to Leipzig, which is where his relationship with Rangnick blossomed, and then now he's at Monaco. So this is somebody that not only is it the name, it's also the role. We've already got Murta, we've already got Fletcher, and then you've got a manager, and that's basically what we've done for years. We're now looking at Rangnick as a consultant and another specialist to come in and work with Murta, Fletcher, Rangnick, Ten Hag and his team. And more specialism means more specialism. It means more accountability. It means more competence. So hopefully we can definitely get those deals done. It's nothing to do with the Mitchell brothers from EastEnders, although you could probably do with sending prime Mitchell brothers into this dressing room at the moment. So we've got a bit of an update from this. It's from David Ornstein this morning. Very good journalist David Ornstein. He says Ralf Rangnick is scheduled to assume a consultancy role once Ten Hag arrives, and is also understood to have endorsed Monaco sporting director Paul Mitchell to the Manchester United hierarchy. And I think, look, if that's a certain outlet, I'm like, I don't know whether I'm going to go for that. But when it's someone like David Ornstein speaking about these things, he's not somebody that really goes with speculation. He's somebody who goes off well-briefed, sourced information, and we'll certainly clarify it with Fabrizio this afternoon. But I think when David Ornstein says that Ralf Rangnick is staying, the plan is to stay next season in a consultancy role, and United are pushing for Mitchell and that Rangnick's endorsing Mitchell. One thing at the moment is that if Ralf Rangnick says something, the Man United fan base wants it to happen in general. So, we knew that Rangnick wanted Ten Hag and ultimately Ten Hag came in. We know that Rangnick has met with Mitchell, wants Mitchell, and it's not just Ralf Rangnick. I've got to be fair. I mean, let's not pretend that Ralf Rangnick is the only person who's got common sense in that football club. I think there's a lot of people who are starting to wake up and smell the coffee, and Mitchell is somebody that's admired within the football club beyond Ralf Rangnick. They would like him to come to the club. He ticks a lot of the boxes as well, because one thing that United have always been, and whether you like it or not, is that they are a little bit concerned about taking people from Germany or the Dutch league or anything like that, whereas Mitchell actually is from the area and also has very good understanding of Premier League football and scouting players to bring into the Premier League. So he ticks a lot of the boxes. He's at the right profile. He's got a good relationship with Rangnick. They like relationships. I think too much in the past United has been about mates rates, and we've recruited people that actually weren't good enough but were liked. I think now we're looking at people that are liked and people have got relationships with but have also got very good CVs. So I think Paul Mitchell's very, very interesting. In relation to Ralf Rangnick, I think it's very important that he stays in. I want to talk about transfer news, but I've got to talk about this morning. I'm almost disgusted by some of the stuff I was getting sent to me last night in group chats and stuff like that. It's wrong. It's completely wrong. The sort of information that's out there, and I've said this before. There are accounts out there on Instagram and TikTok and everywhere that nobody knows who they are. They say they're a certain name, but they're not. They're not that. And sometimes you don't even have a face. And it's like they'll say something, and because it's something popularist, I mean, I could tweet this morning that United are really close to signing Tchouaméni. It's a hot race between Man United and Real Madrid. I could tweet that. I could get loads of likes and retweets, but the reality is, if he goes to Real Madrid, I'll just say, wow, we just lost out at the end, even though I've got no information that we're in for him. And it's this, say what people want to hear is so dangerous. I mean, one of the great things about this community is we don't say what people want to hear. We say what their opinion is. And an opinion, whilst it can be controversial. It's an opinion, isn't it? But some of the stuff I'm hearing last night, I'm disgusted by it, really, because it's wrong and it's not right. And effectively, what it is to do with is what I said yesterday. There are two strands at Manchester United at the moment. There are players that have basically down tools, don't like the manager, and have not performed well on the pitch. And there are players that have backed the manager but haven't performed well on the pitch. And they're two very different things. Very different things. And I'm basically Rangnick staying is really important because he's going to prepare this dossier and he's going to be speaking to Ten Hag, which he already is, and he's going to be saying, you need this player, you need this player. I wouldn't trust this player. Absolutely, exactly, that's going to happen. Everybody knows that's going to happen. Erik Ten Hag is going to have those discussions without a shadow of a doubt. I'm hoping for a Star Wars Order 66 clear out of players, says Joshua Bowwater. If we get Paul Mitchell in alongside Ralph and Ten Hag, get rid of the lot of them. So Erik Ten Hag is definitely going to prepare this dossier, this report for Rangnick's going to prepare this report for Ten Hag, where he's going to say, look, I've been here 6 months. I couldn't get him to play this style of football for this reason. This member of the squad is a problem. There is potential there, but he's a problem. This member of the squad, there's potential there. I would get rid of him. Those sort of things are going to happen. This member of the squad has massively underperformed, but they've always tried, and I think there's more in them. The trouble with the United fan base at the moment, or certain sections of the fan base at the moment, is they completely dislike certain players and they want to throw them into certain categories. You're a troublemaker, you're okay. There's, like in life, good and bad, massive area in between. And there are, as I said, two issues at United's dressing room mainly. There's players that are performing badly and don't want to play for the manager. There's players that are performing badly but do want to play for the manager. And then beyond that, you've got people that are behind the manager but arguing amongst each other in the dressing room, whereas you've got people who are arguing with the manager and arguing with people in the dressing room. So you can't, with every individual, if you gave me a player, I would probably say to you, okay, well, let's have a look at this player then. So take, for example, a player that's been playing for United this season but not been playing very well. I would say to you, thinking of a player in my head, okay, he is behind the manager. The manager does trust him. He hasn't been playing well, but the manager does trust him. But he's not getting on with such and such in the dressing room. But then there might be somebody else who is not getting on with the manager and is not playing and is completely toxic. I would go with the route that if they've not been playing, they're pretty toxic and Rangnick doesn't like them. If they have been playing and they've not been playing well, Rangnick does like them, but they're just not playing well. There's different aspects to this. So, look, last night, basically, I'm going to name a few names now because I'm going to be talking in a positive way and I'm not going to call out people negatively. But last night, I'm getting people asking me stuff like, so, you know, in this list that Rangnick's got, is he going to tell Erik Ten Hag to get rid of such and such, such and such, such and such because they're toxic? And I'm looking at this list and I'm like, well, yeah, that's right. Harry Maguire, that's not right. Harry Maguire's not on Ralph Rangnick's toxic list. He's his bloody captain. He picks him most weeks. You can't put somebody on the toxic list just because you don't like them and they're not very good. I would sell Maguire. I don't think he's been very good. I don't think he's a modern centre-back. But absolutely not is he a player that Rangnick thinks is toxic. He might not be getting on. Maguire might not get on with other people in the dressing room, but he's not a problem for Rangnick. He's not on his toxic list. The same with Luke Shaw. Again, a player that some of our fans don't like, so therefore he's on the toxic list. I tell you what, it's bloody dangerous to start tweeting out, oh, Luke Shaw and Harry Maguire are on the toxic list and Ralph Rangnick wants rid of them, because they're not. They're not. I can categorically tell you they are not. They're not performing well, but they're not on Rangnick's toxic list. And you might not like that, but if they were on his toxic list, he wouldn't bloody pick them. Because he's got left-backs he can pick, and he's got centre-backs he can pick. The reality is, Harry Maguire and Luke Shaw are people that Ralph Rangnick likes and trusts. They're just not performing very well. And in the case of Luke Shaw, what I find hilarious is, I've got people telling me, Luke Shaw's on the toxic list. Luke Shaw's one of the players that Rangnick's going to tell Ten Hag to sell. Is he? Is he really? Should we go back to an article a month ago where he spoke about Luke Shaw and Scott McTominay being one of the few players that actually has the right attitude when faced with adversity? Go and search the article out. And this is what pisses me off, is because I'll be the first person to say that's a shit performance from a United player, but I'll also be the first person to shout out injustice. And it's an injustice that certain players are being called out as toxic troublemakers against Ralph Rangnick when they're not. They're not. Luke Shaw, Harry Maguire and a few others, they may not get on with other people in the dressing room. I'm not saying that. But in relation to Ralf Rangnick, I can categorically tell you that Luke Shaw and Harry Maguire and Bruno Fernandes are not issues in Ralf Rangnick's mind. They may not be performing on the pitch, but they are players that he feels he can trust and pick. And I agree, they should have been dropped, but they're not problems. And then on the other hand, I've got a list of players that are the role models of the dressing room, of which Diego Dalot's on there. Okay, right, Diego Dalot is a young player who is definitely not one of the vocal ones in the dressing room. But Bruno Fernandes isn't on that list, who is definitely one of the vocal ones in the dressing room. And what we're getting now is, we're starting to get lists of players put out by people who've got no fucking clue what's going on in that club, but really they're just putting lists of who they like and who they don't like. So the problem people are Bruno, Maguire, Luke Shaw, and the people who are good, wow, that's Ronaldo, De Gea, Dalot, Lindelof, which is bollocks. It's absolute. I mean, some of those names might be right, but what I'm saying is, it's very obvious that Ralf Rangnick needs to stay at this football club. It's very obvious that Ralf Rangnick is going to tell Erik ten Hag who the problem players are. But there's two types of problems. There's problems with players who aren't performing, and there's problems with players who basically down tools and stabbed Rangnick in the back. And I'm telling you now, you can like it or lump it. I would sell Harry Maguire. It's not personal. I just don't think he's a modern centre-back. But I will stick up for him and say he is not a player that is downing tools at training and not working hard for Ralf Rangnick. He's working hard. He's just not performing well. Same with Luke Shaw. Same with Bruno Fernandes. There are players in that dressing room who aren't being picked, who are toxic, completely toxic, or when they are being picked, they're underperforming and they are completely toxic. And on that will be the list that Ralf Rangnick is giving to Erik ten Hag. And I'll tell you what, the proof will be in the pudding, because I guarantee you that Luke Shaw, Harry Maguire and Bruno Fernandes will be Man United players next season, because if Ralf Rangnick said to Erik ten Hag, get rid of them, and he said get rid of them, the club probably would do it. What do you think of Bruno Fernandes' performance recently, says Akel? Well, I don't want to dwell on it too much, Akel, because we did a whole 20 minutes at the start of the 8 o'clock show last night with the king of Bruno opinion, Ricky, so I don't want to dwell on it too much. But in relation to Bruno, he's not playing very well. I'm a massive fan of Bruno Fernandes, but I'm a bigger fan of Manchester United, and I think this player FC thing needs to die. I do. I think it'll be a good thing if it does, because ultimately I think what we've learned this year is that no player can be trusted. The only thing that's constant, the only thing that you can trust is the badge and the club that you love. You can't trust the owners, you can't trust the CEO, you can't trust the players, you can't trust the manager, but the club will always be there. So I think in relation to relation to that, I'm always what's best for Manchester United. And at the moment, Bruno is underperforming, isn't he? He is underperforming. Do I think he can get better? Yes. But that brings us interestingly on to a story I wanted to talk about. There's growing rumours that Manchester United will move for Christian Eriksen in the summer. Now, I want to talk about De Jong as well, but Eriksen and De Jong both have a strong touch point with Erik ten Hag. Christian Eriksen was actually training with Ajax at the start of the year when he was looking for a club after his heart condition issue last summer. Obviously released by Inter Milan. He's now playing for Brentford very, very well, but he was training with Ajax and has a good relationship with ten Hag, as obviously De Jong does as a former Ajax player. So the interesting thing about Christian Eriksen is that he's almost a very good replacement. I should have asked Ricky last night. I think he's a very good replacement for Juan Mata, who we know hasn't really got the legs anymore. But Eriksen's the sort of player that gets on the ball and uses the ball. Now, one of the problems with Bruno is he doesn't use the ball. He plays too quick. Eriksen uses the ball quite well. Now, do I think Christian Eriksen's a good signing for Manchester United? In normal circumstances, I think not. But in a transition from this is a rebuild, a free signing, because he is free this summer, he's only at Brentford on a short-term contract, as a free signing, as a replacement for Juan Mata, Christian Eriksen might actually be not a bad player to bring in, because he's probably not going to start. I don't think you buy him as a starter, but if you do bring him in, and Bruno is underperforming, he is a player that you go out the team. You're in. I mean, you'd love Christian Eriksen right now, and that's the thing that I was thinking about this before I went live. I was like, which way am I going to go on this? And I thought, well, hold on a minute. You can only ever deal in the present. There's no point thinking about the future or the past. We should be in the Champions League, this, that and the other. If Christian Eriksen was a Man United player now, I'd bloody love it, because I would drop Bruno and I would play Eriksen. So that might be the scenario next year. So I don't think you can ignore that sort of a signing, because ultimately, we have got some good young players as well. You've got Granger, you've got Mabry, you've got maybe even a Shoretire. There are players that could develop under ERIKSEN who could come in for 3 years. This great news that RANGNICK is staying for me. The rebuild we need, says Ray Carl Brown and Worry. Yeah, 100%. Ralph RANGNICK has to stay at this football club. You can't have a man who's been treated that badly by that squad. The worst thing that could happen is that RANGNICK comes in for 6 months, gets absolutely treated like shit. Thanks for the super chat, Lewis. Calls them all out, says they're all a problem, and then United go, yeah, thanks for your help, off you go. And then Ten Hag starts on day one with the same squad and has to learn. I mean, my message to Man United would be, whatever you think about Ralph RANGNICK, do you want Erik Ten Hag to start on day one and learn all the lessons that RANGNICK's learnt over the last 6 months on his own? Or do you want him to start on day one with Ralph RANGNICK telling him everything before he even starts? Forget the personality, forget what you think about RANGNICK. Think about if you run a business and you've got a problem workforce and you've got a new manager coming in, do you just say to the last manager, piss off, and then the new manager you start and he knows nothing about that workforce? Or do you say to the previous manager, can you please work with the new manager so he knows all the problems before he starts? And that's what it's about. That's the thing. I like RANGNICK. I think he's brilliant at building clubs. I don't think he's a great coach anymore, but I think he's brilliant at building clubs. And this is what we wanted him for. And from RANGNICK's side, he'd always wanted to do the consultancy role. That was always part of the plan. So only United could destroy that, and hopefully they won't do it. Morning, Mark. Is there any idea of which players aren't listening to simple instructions that RANGNICK has improvised for upcoming games? Is Slow Sports News. Welcome to the Members Club, Sankit. Thank you very much for joining. You can do it through the pin chat if you want. Slow Sports News. In relation to the players that are not implementing what Ralph RANGNICK wants on the training ground or on the pitch, I will not name names because I think it's wrong for me to do that, because there are journalists out there who aren't naming names and getting paid by those players to give them information. Or getting little incentives to do that. So I'm not going to do that. But what I will say is I know some of the players that are causing the problems. For RANGNICK, it's a different. As I said, there's two different things. There's dressing room unrest, which Lingard and McTominay and everyone's spoken about. That's player A not getting on with player B, and player C not getting on with player D. That's going on. That's going on. Like, there's first team players who don't get on with each other. That's completely different. What you're asking me there is, who are the players that have basically down tools against RANGNICK and not following his instructions and being arseholes? Yeah, that's a separate thing. The players that aren't working for RANGNICK are the players that he's not picking, or the players that he's consistently not picking, or the players that he's bringing on and then taking off very quickly after an hour, or the players he's giving the last 20 minutes to. And not all of them. Juan Mata's not one of them, definitely. But the group that have basically gone against RANGNICK is the players that haven't been used much, or have been dropped a lot, who are out the team a lot, who are on the bench a lot, who are not even on the bench. So they're the problem. It's not Maguire, it's not Shaw, it's not Bruno. So that's just a silly rumour, to be fair. So in relation to Christian Eriksen, I do quite like the idea of it. I think it's a mindset, you know. I do. I wanted to say this last night. I think it's a mindset. I think our fan base, quite rightly, has this arrogance that we are Manchester United. It's a disgrace that we're even contemplating Thursday night football. We should be buying Tchouaméni and Haaland, and we should. That's where Man United should be. We should be in the Champions League. We should be fighting for titles, and we should be competing to sign Erling Haaland. That's the level United should be. The cold, harsh fact is we're not there. This is the worst season we've ever had. You can't deny it. Look at the league table. We're going to get our lowest ever Premier League points total in Premier League history. Therefore, we're at the worst point we've ever been. We cannot be arrogant about, I don't want Thursday night football. I can't understand why people don't want Europa League football. I mean, I don't want it because I don't want to be in it. I want to be in the Champions League, but we're not good enough. And the Europa League gives Ten Hag more games to implement his ideas with more players, because he can play one team on a weekend and one team on a Thursday, develop youth, give people an opportunity. You think about it, if we're only playing in the Premier League next year, and the first 4 games of the season you've got Leeds, Villa, Liverpool and Everton, he ain't going to be playing 3 youngsters in those games, is he? He can't afford to do that. But if he's got Europa League games, he can play a few youngsters. So I think the Europa League games are essential because it gives Ten Hag more games to develop players and give them and try different things. And also, it's another opportunity to get in the Champions League. And that feeds into ERIKSEN as well. I think if we were in the Champions League and we were thinking about fighting for the title, I wouldn't go for Christian ERIKSEN. I'd be going, I don't care whether he's free. He's 30 years of age. What are we doing for that? What are we doing for that? But actually, I think with Mata leaving, I wish Mata was 28. I wish Mata was 30 because I think he's got the right football style and the right experience for that squad. Bruno can't handle it. He can't. At the moment, Bruno is one of the senior pros and he can't handle it. He's costing us games. He's missing penalties. You know, his game's all over the place. He hasn't got that maturity in his game. And I think Christian ERIKSEN has. I think Juan Mata has. And a player like that, who Erik ten Hag knows, who is free, who you know is Premier League proven, I think ERIKSEN ticks a lot of the boxes. I'm not saying we're going to do it, but I think that sort of deal's quite clever. And the other thing that's quite clever is, if you buy Christian ERIKSEN, you've spent no money. So that's another signing coming in. You've still got 150 million quid to spend. So, especially when we know that, all right, Christian ERIKSEN's wages might be quite good, but with Cavani's going, Pogba's going, Lingard's going, Mata's going, Matic is going, there's a lot of wages there. So, ERIKSEN might work. The only thing I would say about ERIKSEN is, before we move on to De Jong and others, is where does he fit in? Where does ERIKSEN fit in? Because, but Modric is 36 and making waves, says Fat. And welcome to the Members Club, Paul. Thank you very much for joining the Members Club. Remember, you get exclusive video content on our Members Club. Lots of transfer head-to-heads. The last one we did was Nkunku against Bruno, which you can check on the Members section. But that was what I was going to talk about. If you buy ERIKSEN, you're not going to get Nkunku, are you? Because that's it. A 30-year-old who's coming towards the end of his career, or someone in their early to mid 20s who's ready to make the step up. But one's going to be free and one's going to be 50 million quid. If you get ERIKSEN, you're not going to get Nkunku. If you get ERIKSEN, where's he going to play in that team? The only position that I think he can really play is probably Bruno's position, because I don't think Ten Hag would play him off the wide. But then you start talking about squad. Next season, all right, Donny comes back, Lingard's gone, Cavani's gone. We're crying out for ERIKSEN at the moment. So we need to buy somebody, because we're crying out for ERIKSEN at the moment. We really are. Everyone's saying Bruno needs taken out the team. You'd bring ERIKSEN in. So there's pros and cons to it. I agree with you on ERIKSEN. Beggars can't be choosers. Currently, we do not have the bargaining factor. And that might be very important, Mohamed Saki, as well. Which leads us on to De Jong. Now, I will be speaking to Fabrizio about De Jong this afternoon. It's on a big list of things I want to talk about. If you've got any ideas, smack it in the chat. The De Jong story, I sort of got told about it yesterday morning by MUFC MPB on Twitter. And he was like, can you retweet this? And I haven't retweeted it because I don't retweet stuff that I don't think's true. And I don't think we're in for De Jong. I just don't. I think it's complete and utter shite, to be honest. And fair play to the people who are putting the information out, because that's what aggregators are meant to do. But I don't believe it. So I'm personally not going to endorse it, because I just don't believe it. De Jong is very happy at Barcelona. He's on 300 and something thousand pounds a week, and Barcelona would want 70 million quid. Do you really think Man United are going to buy De Jong for 70 million quid and give him 350 grand a week? Do you really think we're in a position? And it goes back to what Mohammed just said there. Beggars can't be choosers. We cannot go and spend a large proportion of our transfer budget on one player that would only be coming to us because Barcelona wants some money. He doesn't want to leave Barcelona. He's happy in Barcelona. The only reason he would leave is if Barcelona said you're for sale. And therefore, and that's not the right mentality of player we want. Do you want a player coming to United because his current club doesn't want him anymore? His mindset's not going to be right anyway. We want players who want to come to Manchester United and be part of the project. De Jong's not at that point yet. And if he was at that point, it'd be ridiculous. You're basically buying one of the best midfielders in Europe for a team that's going to be in the Conference League and fighting for fourth. We're not at that level. we may as well go and try and buy Haaland. We're not at that level to do that sort of deal. But I think people are getting excited because De Jong used to play for Ten Hag. And no doubt Ten Hag and United and I and you would love De Jong at United. But it's not realistic in my opinion. Mata should be replaced with a youngster as Mata doesn't play every week anyway, says Hub. Welcome to the Members Club, Torai. Thank you very much for that. Also, as well, we've got an update on Rudiger again. I think we spoke about it briefly yesterday morning. Romano's been tweeting about it this morning. There's a lot of stories about it last night. Christian Falk spoke about it yesterday morning. Rudiger to Real Madrid is basically done, but it won't be announced until the end of the season. So Chelsea's loss is Real Madrid's gain. We're seeing a lot of this. I don't know how United tap into this. There's a theme here. Juventus were doing it really well a couple of years ago. Barcelona have done it, and now Real Madrid are doing it. And you've got to question why United aren't doing it, and therefore that's why I'm talking about ERIKSEN. Real Madrid this summer, over the last year, have got Alaba, Rudiger. They're now going to get Mbappe, and they're getting them all on a free. And they might get Pogba as well. Like, top clubs are now getting top players on free transfers. And it seems to be a running theme with certain football clubs, not United. We don't seem to be able to tap into this market at all. Real Madrid, Barcelona are doing it a lot. As I said, Juventus have done it. PSG have done it. They've got loads of money, but they're still picking up players on a free transfer. They've got that pull to do that. We've got to get that pull back. Because at the moment, Luke says they're not free, Mark. Well, they are free, aren't they? They are free because basically they will be being paid good wages. I agree with that. But they would, I mean, if Rudiger was going to Real, well, they are free, Luke, because basically Real Madrid wouldn't be able to afford Rudiger. Rudiger's wages at Real Madrid, let's say they're going to give him 250 grand a week. He'd want that to leave Chelsea anyway, but they'd also have to pay Chelsea 40, 50 million. So they are still getting him for free. He's going to get good wages, but he'd get good wages anyway. Mbappe would get good wages anyway. I mean, Barcelona were paying Griezmann 700 grand a week apparently. So, you know, this silly wages anyway. I'm not frustrated with Bruno because he missed a penalty. That happens. It's his overall game at the moment. Do you agree, says Daniel Kirk? Yeah. I mean, the frustration is that basically we were still in that game and he lost control of the ball and Xhaka scored. It's and Bruno's been doing that quite a few times this season, hasn't he? Where he loses the ball in dangerous areas and we concede a goal. So, yeah, I mean, with the momentum just disappeared. Do I think Martial will stay, says Taj? Or it might be Ty. There's no J there, it's Ty. I don't know. Christensen's going to Barcelona as well on a free as well. But yeah, I don't know about Anthony Martial. I don't think he'll stay. I don't think he should stay. But I am a fan of Martial. I've always been a fan of Martial. But to be honest with you, we got Lee Grant on a free, says Robert McCormack. Yeah, we did. Yeah, what a signing that was. Superstar Grant. You know what? With Martial, what I would say is this. We talk about issues in the dressing room, and I think with Martial, he's been at that club a long time. He knows that club like the back of his hand. He's become disillusioned at that football club. He's become marginalised. He's been a starter. He's been through everything at United. He's scored on his debut off the bench against Liverpool. He's been booed. You know, he's had the whole lot. And what is he, 25, 26 now? I don't think Martial is going to have a renaissance at Manchester United and a reset. You know, it's like moving into it. You know what it is? It's like if you've lived in a house for 6 years and then you move away and then you move back into the house that you've been in for 6 years. It's not a new start, is it? You know everything about it. And I think Martial needs a fresh start. I think United need a fresh start. I don't think it doesn't need to be toxic. I think it could turn toxic if he stays because I just don't think he'd be a starter. I don't think he would. I'm not saying that Ten Hag couldn't get their best out of him, but I think RANGNICK wanted to get something out of him, and Martial basically said, "I don't want to stay." I don't think Martial was disrespectful to RANGNICK. He just didn't want to stay, and I don't think that'll change. And I also think it would be contradictory of us to start taking players back like Martial and saying, "Let's have a future." I mean, is that not what we did with Eric Bailly a year ago? Eric Bailly hadn't been playing for United and we give him a new contract. Oh, you're going to get more game time. A year later, he hasn't. Jesse Lingard comes back from a good loan deal at West Ham. Oh, you're going to be part of the future. And then he's not. I think it's time to clear these players out. Like, there's a reason they've not been picked. Henderson, Lingard, Bailly, Martial. They need clearing out. Mata, Matic, they've got to go. And some of those players are good. Some of the characters are good. Some of them are toxic. But what I'm saying is that they're not playing. They're senior pros. They're on a good wage, and they need shipping out. And I'll be surprised if any of them stay, really. How about Kamara and Benedeschi as free transfers, says Kizile. We've been offered Kamara from Marseille. We were offered Kamara in January. I think the story was that RANGNICK put forward Kamara and Zakaria as options in January, and United didn't go for it. So whether that might change now that we've got different scouts and everything, it might do. Kamara is a very interesting player. I can see him ending up at somewhere like Newcastle, to be honest. They'll offer him good money. Big shout out to New Zealand and Australia's Remembrance Day. Wish our players had half the fight of those men, says Mark Perales. Thank you very much for that. And Mark, do you think Donny van der Beek will play under Ten Hag, says Anakin? Well, Donny van der Beek's very different. Donny van der Beek is very different. We spoke about this last night. Donny van der Beek, like De Jong, like De Ligt, has played under Erik Ten Hag, and Erik Ten Hag knows everything about Donny van der Beek and is obviously an admirer of Donny van der Beek. Donny van der Beek wants to make it at Manchester United. Donny van der Beek will be here next season. Whether he's here the season after that, I don't know. But he will be given an opportunity under Ten Hag, because it'd be stupid not to. We're desperately short of midfielders. Erik Ten Hag knows what he's all about. What he needs to figure out is, can Donny van der Beek do it in the Premier League? And that will be what next season's all about. So there's no guarantees, but Donny van der Beek won't leave in the summer. No way. Because he will be, in Ten Hag's mind, he will be like a new signing who he knows like the back of his hand, who he knows in that dressing room he can trust. And the problem with United's dressing room is you can't trust a lot of people. They'll stab you in the back. So Donny van der Beek will be valuable to Erik Ten Hag in more than one way. Free transfer is like getting a free car. You still got to buy petrol to use it, says Rest Up Build Up. Yeah, but you don't have to buy the car. Twok, thank you very much for becoming a member of the club. Thank you very much for that. So we've spoken about that. Let's have a quick look at what people are saying. So we have got Fabrizio Romano on the show this afternoon at 2:30. So make sure you tune in for that. We'll be going through a lot of the transfer stuff there as well. Any possibility Ronaldo leaves Manchester United, says Fekos. Yes, there's always a possibility. I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo is... I was thinking about it last night and I didn't say it on the show. I will say it now. I wish, like alternate universes. I just like a glimpse of it. I don't want to live it. I was livid when I thought Ronaldo was going to go to Man City. I thought it was the ultimate betrayal. But I would like to just have a glimpse of what Ronaldo would be now in April if he'd spent a full season at Man City. Because I think he'd have nearly 40 goals. I think he'd have scored so many goals in that Man City side. So I still think Ronaldo will score a lot of goals in a top side. Unfortunately, we're not a top side, then he's still scored a lot of goals. So I think with Ronaldo, if the right offer comes in, he will go. And United will let him go because he's on massive wages and we're not going to be in the Champions League and we're not going to be fighting for the title. So the Ronaldo thing doesn't really work for United as much as it did a year ago. But I think I'm pretty sure he will stay. The only thing that will make him go is if we get an offer that suits everybody. And the only place I can see doing that is PSG. So I think he will be here next season. I hope he's going to be here next season. I think, like RANGNICK, Ronaldo is the right sort of character. And look, you've got to look at why there are people in that dressing room or on the training ground who aren't trying, who are deliberately being anti-RANGNICK. They're not just bullies, they're not just bad people, it's because they don't like what's happening. And examples of things that they might not like: being called out for not being good enough, having to train later on in the day, having to train longer, changes in the way that they train, the drills that they're doing, the things that they're being asked to do, the scrutiny of their game that wasn't there before. These are pampered millionaires who for the last 3 years under Solskjaer had an easy life. And for the last 6 months, they've had players that are better than them telling them they're not good enough. Managers that are more knowledgeable of them telling them that they're not good enough and they need to work harder. Dropping them. It's never understandable because you've got to be a professional. But these players that have lost it and down tools, They haven't just woke up in the morning and decided to do that. They've done it because they don't like the situation they're in. They don't like having to do extra training. They don't like being dropped. They don't like being told they're not good enough. Certain players in that United dressing room last season would consider themselves the superstar of the team. They're not the superstar of the team anymore. Their star has fallen, and they don't like it. And they're scratching around for people to blame. The manager, certain other players, and it basically spoiled behaviour. It's brattish. That's what it is. And but there's a reason for it. And look, I think people want to individualise it as well. It's not just one player. It's not just two players. There are cliques. There's about 10 really toxic players in that United first team squad. Really toxic. And I would not name them, and you should not guess them. Well, you can, but But what I don't like, and I'll go back to it, is that it's really wrong when people name players that are not it. And as I said, Bruno Fernandes, Harry Maguire, Luke Shaw, as much as they've not been good this season, Ralf Rangnick will never do it, but because he can't individualise it, it would be massively unprofessional. But they are not players that have turned against Rangnick, and they are not players on Rangnick's list who he's saying, don't trust these players, they're snakes. They're not. He's been picking them. He's spoken positively about them. The thing is, we as fans, we don't think they've played very well. But that doesn't mean that they're not pro-Rangnick. The ones that aren't pro-Rangnick ain't being picked or aren't playing very much. Do you think the rumours about Poch going back to Tottenham are true? Says Elite. Well, I don't care. I mean, this is the only time I've spoken about Poch over the last few months with a smile on my face. So Conte's apparently going to PSG and Poch is going back to Spurs. It will add an element to next season if Pochettino's at Spurs. When we play Spurs, it'll be very interesting. But, I mean, it'll be interesting to the media. It'll be interesting to some of our fans. But there's no part of me that wanted Poch. So even if Spurs beat us next season, I won't go, wow, we should have got Poch. That's not... In my mind, we've made the right decision. If it ends up being the wrong decision, at least we made the right decision. And what I mean by that is, it might go wrong. My eyes are wide open that it might go wrong. It's Man United after all. Look at the last 9 years. But I think at this moment in time, we made the right decision, in my mind. Make Ronaldo captain, says Martin. I don't actually necessarily think that it's 100% certain that Rangnick and Ronaldo have a great relationship. I don't know. I mean, I'm happy to discuss an opinion. I don't know, is what I would say here. Rangnick always picks Ronaldo, but he doesn't always make him captain. Now, that could be a club decision because Bruno is the vice-captain and they've just decided not to change it and disrupt Bruno. Or maybe Rangnick doesn't want Ronaldo to be captain. I don't know. I don't know what the relationship is with Rangnick and Ronaldo, but the bottom line is it's professional. And actually, it wouldn't matter if Rangnick and Ronaldo can't stand each other. Would it matter? Because Rangnick is well-liked and Ronaldo is well-liked. And Ronaldo goes on the pitch and scores goals and gives everything. I don't care if a player doesn't like a manager. I don't care if a player doesn't like a player. As I said, Andy Cole and Sheringham didn't like each other. Didn't stop us winning the treble. So there's not a problem with people. I think people get lost in this as well. There's no problem with people not liking each other. I don't give a toss if, let's say, Maguire and Ronaldo don't like each other. It doesn't matter. I don't hold anything against Maguire. I don't hold anything against Ronaldo. I don't care if Maguire and Rangnick get on with each other really well, but Rangnick and Ronaldo don't get on with each other. It doesn't matter. In life, people don't get on, but it's the professional element that matters. It's can you, as a professional, put your individual issues aside to go and deliver in a United shirt? In fact, I would love it if Rangnick and Ronaldo don't get on, because I'd go, well, I really like Rangnick, I really like Ronaldo, it's not my argument, let's get on with it. It's like Sir Alex and Roy Keane. I love Sir Alex Ferguson, I love Roy Keane. They can't stand each other. Some of our fans want to take sides. Not me, I don't care. I love them both, they're legends. One on the pitch, one off the pitch. Their individual issue is their individual issue. But what cannot be... But it'd be a very different situation if Sir Alex Ferguson had won all those trophies and Roy Keane had down tools. You know what I mean? And that's what the problem is here. If Ronaldo and Rangnick do get on, great. If they don't get on, great. I'm not bothered because Rangnick's delivering and Ronaldo's delivering. And Rangnick's delivering not in results, but he's delivering in direct honesty, and he's obviously got the best interests of the club at heart by calling out the issues. Ronaldo's got the best interest in the club at heart by scoring goals and performing well. That's the professionalism we're looking for. That's what I expect. That's what you expect. And that's why I'm so frustrated and angry with these players that have fallen out with players, fallen out with the manager, and then decided to down tools and not give a shit. That's just disgusting. They make me sick. But those players are the players that Rangnick's not picking or dropping or hardly playing. Hi, Mike. Hi, Mark. Surely if these players want to be the best in the world, then putting in the extra time in training would achieve that, right? Yep, Jack. But you know what? Unfortunately, if I took you on a day trip today to meet 30 Premier League footballers, I guarantee you 10 of them would just blow your minds with how arrogant and disillusioned and focused on themselves they are. Not every footballer, as we've seen with United this season, not every footballer is as focused on the club they're playing for as you are as a fan. It's different. You know, some of them aren't the brightest. Some of them are very selfish. And unfortunately, United have collected quite a few. Any news regarding the scouting directors, says Jude? Well, I think that'll fall into the Mitchell news, Jude. We'll see what happens with Paul Mitchell on that. But yeah, just to clarify, Rangnick looking to be staying at the club next season. It would be amazing if he didn't. It looks like he's going to stay. And Paul Mitchell is definitely somebody that the club are looking at. Whether we can get it done or not, I don't know. And it's not just Rangnick who wants him. So this would be great. If Rangnick stays, Ten Hag's getting the full story on what's happened for the last 6 months. If Mitchell comes in, the recruitment's going to improve massively. So could be a really exciting summer, which I would say is an exciting summer, but we've got to get some points over the next few games. Chelsea, Brentford, Brighton, Palace. We've got to get 7 points from those 12. Otherwise, we might not even be in bloody Europe. And then that will, you know, those people who don't want to be in the Europa League, we will not be getting good play. Well, we were not going to get the elite players. There'll be players we won't get that you think we would get if we're not in the Europa League. So it's really important the next few games. Players against Ralph must be crapping themselves if he's staying on. They won't be around long or not get game time, forcing them to leave, says Grant. The thing is, though, Grant, it's the problem in that club are not the players that want to leave, and they're not the players that are out of contract. We know 5 or 6 players are out of contract. Some of those players are brilliant and really care about the club, but they're just going to leave. Some of them couldn't give a shit, and they're going to leave anyway. So there's 5 or 6 players who are walking out the door. We can't stop them. There's 3 or 4 players that have hardly played that will be sold. But there's also 3 players, maybe 4, that will be here next season that are completely toxic and should be gone. What the club do with them in the summer is interesting, because I think they will be here next year. But their cards will be marked because Rangnick will be telling Ten Hag and everyone else. Anyway, look, thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. I do think it's important as a message, though, no matter what you think of players and their performances, I will call it out when people are calling out players as being on the list that Rangnick thinks is toxic. And I can absolutely guarantee you 100% Luke Shaw, Harry Maguire, Bruno Fernandes are not on Ralph Rangnick's toxic list of players. They've not performed well, I agree with that, but they are not on Rangnick's list of these players need kicking out the club, they're backstabbers. And people might not like that because they might not like them as players, but there's a difference between underperforming and being behind the manager and underperforming and not being behind the manager. And certainly Shaw, Maguire and Bruno, who have been consistently picked by Rangnick, are not players he doesn't trust. So it's wrong that their names get put out there. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. We will be back this afternoon with Fabrizio Romano with a lot more transfer news and news on what's going on at United. Take care, whatever you're doing today. Stay safe. Thanks for joining me this morning, and I'll see you later on at 2:30. Speak to you in a bit. Twitch after that, yes, this afternoon.